Recording in progress.
Hi, good morning, everybody. My name is Darcy Drager. I'm the chair of the Morris County Democratic Committee, and we are here today with Brian Varela, who is participating in our CD7 congressional screening. I'm joined today by Brian Considine, Andy Meisner, Bill Kersey, Gary Colucci, and Amalia Duarte, who are all members of our screening committee, who will be asking you some questions as we go. And so I am just going to go ahead and kick it off with tell us about yourself. Tell us what inspired you to run for Congress and what is the core message or vision that you hope to communicate to voters.
Yeah, thank you all, first of all, so much for making the time here. I really appreciate this because I know this isn't easy. I'm at these forums with all of these other candidates, and it is a very, very good field. And I, in some ways, do not envy being in your position. But yeah, I'll tell you a little bit about myself and kind of weave in some of the other stuff there. I'm a first generation Colombian American, grew up very much blue collar. My parents, at any point in life, my dad was a janitor, a waiter, a chef. My mom was a waitress. She worked at a factory. But my parents did something that I feel is difficult, if not impossible, these days. With their blue collar jobs, they saved up money. They were eventually able to buy a house. They started a business together, and they accomplished what many of us would perceive as the American dream. They made a lot of sacrifices and built a better life for my brother and I. That sadly didn't last too long. My parents, like most Americans, were really affected by the Great Recession, and their business got leveled. And they didn't go out of business, but things got really, really hard at home. And incidentally, that's actually around the time when I was going into college. So my parents couldn't afford to pay for my college, and because we know that college is arguably the strongest vehicle for social mobility in this country, especially for first generation folks and immigrants as well. I knew I had to go to school. And so I basically got a full-time job. I worked full-time while I went to school full-time. I finished in 3.5 years. I graduated with honors, cum laude, Sigma Beta Delta. Later on in life, I went on to get my MBA from UNC, and I'm actually working on a second master's right now in international relations from Seton Hall, which is why what I think this administration is doing is so disgusting. The fact that they're trying to limit opportunities for people like myself that use Pell Grants to really move up in life, right, is a shame. And not only that, I think it's counterproductive to the economy of this country, right? Ultimately, folks who are beneficiaries of these Pell Grants are people who are trying to improve themselves, are trying to skill up. And these are things that as taxpayers, we should want, because these are people who are becoming more productive members of our society. And we need to encourage that in order to build a stronger American economy. I think that when it comes to education, it's one of the things that I think we need to expand access to education. I think we need to make education more affordable and more accessible for families all across the socioeconomic spectrum. But I also support expanding access to trade schools. The truth is that we've got a lot of jobs of the future that are going to have a tough time getting filled. And if a 4-year degree is not something that aligns with someone's future, we need to be receptive to that and understand that there are still significant ways, arguably even more important ways, that people can help contribute to our society and to our economy and to the future of American innovation. After college, I got into the corporate world, and I was ready to start my life. And sadly, my mom was diagnosed with cancer. And when that happened, my parents went completely out of business at that point. And so we were always a very close family. And so I had to step up. At 22 years old, 22, 23, I became my family's breadwinner. And I learned firsthand what it was like to be behind on your mortgage and your car payments and your credit card bills, a lot of the same experiences that millions of Americans go through. And while it was a very hard time, I am proud to say that I was able to eventually save my childhood home from foreclosure. And I was able to step up and be there for my family. But what that situation brought to my attention is that how many families are going through what my family went through? And do those families have a relative or someone that can step up for them in a very significant financial way? And the idea that in this country, someone can get sick and ultimately end up losing their home, to me, is unacceptable. It's the reason I'm a believer in universal health care. I would support anything that's going to drive the cost of health care down while increasing the quality of care for people in this country. 2 years after my mom was diagnosed with cancer, she ended up passing. And when that happened, again, new challenges. My parents were very close. My dad was left in shambles. He eventually moved back to Colombia, which I encouraged because that's really what he needed. But I've got a younger brother who's 10 and a half years younger than me, and he was 13 when my mom passed. So life threw a new challenge, raising a teenager. And that was tough. And we got through that okay. But that showed me what a lot of working and middle class families go through. They're holding down the job, they're keeping up with the bills, they're raising the teenagers. It's very hard. And I did that in a time where we weren't facing the things we're facing today, these ridiculous tariffs and inflation. We're seeing jobs being cut. We're seeing the price of food go up. We're seeing housing go up. It was tough back then. I don't know how people are doing it now. And it's a big reason why I strongly believe in any legislation and policy that's going to improve affordability and strengthen our economy. I'm a believer in things like universal childcare. I think that is entirely an economic issue. I believe in expanding the access to increasing the supply of housing to make sure we make housing accessible for more people. I believe that we also need to ban private equity firms from hoarding single family homes, which are disproportionately affecting marginalized communities. Um, Day one, we've got to reverse these tariffs, and we've got to reverse a lot of the cuts that OBA has basically created. We need to reinvest in things like our education and infrastructure and R&D and clean energy. I think this administration has done the exact opposite of what we need to do for a strong American economy, and we're starting to see the shadows of it peeking out now, finally. Um, so after that, I eventually got into business for myself. In December of 19, I put my life savings into a childcare center, and I'm such a great entrepreneur that 3 months later we were shut down because of the pandemic. My timing was not great, but eventually I was able to reopen. Fast forward to now, I've built one of the fastest growing companies in the country. I'm on the Inc. 5000. I was named Executive of the Year by New Jersey Business Magazine, and I'm on the NJ Biz Power 50 list for education. So I've gotten to see firsthand what a lot of small businesses go through. I'm a big supporter of small business. I'm a supporter of any legislation or policy that strengthens our small businesses. Reason being is that running a small business is hard. And as we all know, small businesses are the backbone of our economy, and they are the number one job creator, right? And I would support policies to make sure that we strengthen and expand access to people who want to start their own small businesses. And then came organizing, as I'm sure all of you know, hopefully. I'm the founder and chair of the Morris Dems Hispanic Caucus, and I've been very active and involved over the last several years. I'm actually proud to say that I'm the only candidate in this field that's been involved for years and years and years. And I've been involved in a variety of ways. I've helped Democrats up and down the ballot. In the interest of time, I will share one story, which I consider my strongest success story in all transparency. But less than a year and a half ago, right in Morton, hey, Bill, right in Morton, there was a defunct committee. There was no organization at the time. And I spent 2 weeks, I knocked over 300 doors. In conversation by conversation, I was able to put together an executive committee, help guide them. And I know there were other people across Morris County that helped as well. I'm very cognizant of that. But we got up and running, and eventually they found two amazing candidates. And of course, I was very involved in helping those candidates as well. And I'm proud to say that a town that had no committee less than a year and a half ago just flipped 2 seats last November. And we're probably going to flip some more seats this November. And I have done that to a varying degree in and out of the district, whether it's township level, county level, legislative level. One of my biggest strengths over the past few years is being the strongest ally for Democrats and making sure that we are building this party out properly, especially in red-leaning areas like Morris County and New Jersey 7. Although I will say Morris is looking a little bit more swingy lately. And now we are here running for Congress. There's a lot of reasons that I'm running, but the one very physical story was the Wednesday after Trump won in 2024, and like a lot of people, I woke up not feeling great. And I really tried to think of what we can do more. And of course, we started doing analysis and looking at the race. And look, Trump beat us for a variety of reasons. Some of the reasons is that he attracted young voters and he attracted men and he attracted Hispanics. I am literally a young Hispanic male. I'm in a very unique position to appeal to a lot of these groups. And my campaign has already been doing the work to appeal to these groups, whether it's our investment of time and resources on social media and the fact that we've generated over 5 million impressions in the last 30 days, whether it's the outreach that we're doing into Hispanic communities. We just saw what happened in Texas. Hispanics will turn out, but not if they're engaged a month before the election. You need to start engaging. You need to do it early. Um, the other thing too that really stood out to me is that national Democrats were talking about how great the economy was, and they weren't wrong. In 24, sure, stock market was high and unemployment was low, and sure, no problem, right? You're not lying. But the problem is that working class families don't own stocks. I remember when I was growing up, my parents didn't own stocks, right? So the only thing that working class and middle class families are usually seeing, right, is the cost of food. And while the Democrats were highlighting the economy, a lot of our voters, the people we're meant to represent, felt like they were being gaslighted. And for me, I felt that we lacked such a diversity of perspective, and that we would really have benefited from. Darcy, please, am I
Yeah,
going too long?
yeah, you're running a little long because this is just the first question.
Sure.
So I think that that gives us a sense of why you're running and what some of the messages are. Andy, would you like to take our second question?
Hey, Brian, greetings from Mount Olive.
Hello, Matt Olive.
Congress requires negotiation and coalition building. Can you give an example from your career where you successfully worked across differences to achieve a goal?
Oh yeah. One very recent example is this campaign. Our goal is to have the strongest coalition possible, and I'm proud to say that we've been endorsed by over 80 Democratic leaders in the district. But what I'm more particularly proud of is that those endorsements span the entire ideological spectrum. We've been endorsed by arguably the progressive leader in the state, Mayor Ross Baraka, but we also have been endorsed by many moderate Democrats that are winning in Trump-friendly areas, whether it was a former councilman of Netcong, Bob Hathaway, right here in Morris County, whether it's a current councilman of Belvedere, John Johnson, former mayor and current councilman of Sparta, Neil Clark, former mayor of Clark, New Jersey, Bob Ellenport. These are Trump plus 14, Trump plus 18, Trump plus 24 towns. These are Democrats that know what it takes to win in tough areas, and they believe that I am that Democrat. And I think that going into the general, the coalition building is going to be really important. I'm the only person in this race so far to have built such a deep coalition, and the only one that's spanning the entire ideological spectrum. I've also have done it in business. I mean, I've been in business for I think roughly around 10 years or so. And in business, especially as you're building a company, you're going to deal with a variety of personalities and different ideas and different opinions, especially as you start building your leadership team. And part of my leadership development is building consensus amongst everyone to ensure that we are making the best decisions going forward, whether it's managing egos or tempers or passions or even just competingly great ideas, right? It's something that I've done firsthand as a leader, and I've been doing it for a very long time.
Great. Thank you, Brian. All right, Amalia, over to you.
Okay. Hey, Brian, good morning. What would you identify as the most urgent legislative need for NJ7 as a whole, and how would you address it during your first year of office if elected?
So in New Jersey 7, I mean, there's we've got issues around housing and we've got issues around transit, but I think that the issues that resonated in 24 and in 25 are also going to resonate in 26, which is affordability, right? Which those things all of them play into. So look, there's low-hanging fruit, right? We've got to reverse the devastating impacts of OBA. We need to ensure that Trump does not continue to implement these illegal tariffs. And then but then we can't stop there, right? I think that if we were to look at some of the biggest expenses that families are facing, right, healthcare, right? And yes, we need to ensure that we reinstate these ACA subsidies, but I think we need to look at how we can expand it and make it more affordable. Universal childcare is something that I'm a huge proponent of. The fact that families are paying for childcare the same as a mortgage is absolutely insane. The fact that parents are making decisions if they should continue with their career or one of them stays at home because it just doesn't make sense to send their three kids to childcare is absolutely insane. And I think that when it comes to universal childcare, it is entirely an economic issue. We're talking about parents being able to work. We're talking about bringing more money for the house. We're talking about that extra money being used to stimulate the local economy, right? They're going to go out to dinner an extra night a week and things like that, right? But we're also talking about empowering children to start their academic career on the right foot, to make sure that their odds of succeeding and reaching academic success, whether it's finishing high school or and then finishing college or maybe even seeking an advanced degree, when they start off on the right foot, you're increasing the probability that they have success down the road. And those two things, whether it's empowering parents to work or having a highly educated society, those things lead directly to the productivity of our people here in this country. And when you have a productive society, you have a strong economy, right? It's the reason that as in the past, why we've seen success from investments in things like education and things of that sort.
Great, thank you. Bill.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Varela.
Morning.
What do you see as the most pressing challenges facing Morris County's communities, and how would you use your role in Congress to address them?
In Morris County, I think that we're starting to see a lot of people moving out west, right? And that means Morris County is part of that, the wave of people moving out here. So I think that housing is a big issue, and I think that what we need to ensure is that we are being smart about how we're building housing. In my questionnaire, I mentioned two federal programs that currently exist that can be used. Monies can be brought in specifically to renovate existing infrastructure, whether it's warehouses or low tenant commercial buildings or strip malls, right? And I think that that would help quite a bit. But I also think that you can't talk about housing unless you're also talking about transit, right? I personally believe the two go hand in hand, which means that first and foremost, we need to preserve and protect all of the funding and for the Gateway Tunnel, right? We're talking about over 200,000 union jobs. We're talking about, I mean, I would say north of $2 billion in an economic impact here in the local economy. And that affects the folks here in Morris County pretty significantly, not just commuters, right? I think a lot of people assume that it's just so you can commute in and out of the city, but we're also talking about logistics. The fact is that we move things in and out all the time. And when we have a congressman who looks the other way on what the Trump administration is doing, you're ultimately looking at a congressman that's okay with the cost of living going up for his constituents. I think that Gateway is a big one, but I would also like to see an expansion of whether it's NJ Transit or even rail, right? I think that the western part of the district, whether you're looking at if you wanted to catch a train, I mean, you've got Mount Olive and then you've got Peapack Gladstone, and then you're gonna have to drive much further if those two don't make sense, right? So I think we need to expand that, especially as we're seeing more and more people moving out to Morris County.
Excellent. Thank you. So, as you know, NJ7 presents a challenging electoral landscape. It's a competitive mix of suburban and conservative-leaning communities, and Congressman Tom Kean does have an advantage of incumbency and a significant fundraising operation. So we would love for you to just take 2 to 3 minutes, maybe 4, to describe your overall strategy for building a campaign capable of winning this district. And we'd like to hear about how you plan to develop your organizational strength, how you're building a competitive fundraising base, how you're leveraging local support from Morris County Dems, and demonstrate electability across all parts of the district.
Yes. So I think that with how diverse this district is, a lot of people think that we've got to run completely different playbooks if you're out in rural Warren County or if you're out in Rahway and Linden. But it's the same issues are affecting folks. Affordability, right? Now it's a matter of how you message there that to really land the point. So if you're talking to farmers out in the western part of the district, farmers are part of one of the worst supply chains across the American economy. They are being squeezed by mega consolidated industries on both sides, on both ends of that supply chain, to the point where when you're even looking at these farm subsidies that Congress passes, farmers aren't benefiting from that. It's these mega corporations on either end of that supply chain, and so. That is entirely an affordability issue for farmers, and it's really addressing that. But as you go out to the eastern part of the district, they're also dealing with affordability, but you just come at it from a different way. Whether you're talking about transportation or you're talking about food or you're talking about wages, right? Right now, most people are hurting, right, or are in very tight spots, and I think that when you can message around affordability in a way that makes sense to your audience, I think you can absolutely win them over. I also think that a lot of folks, this district is a very affluent district, but but there are many minority communities in the on both ends of the district, right? So specifically, I like to focus on the fact that 13% of the district is Hispanic. Roughly 6 to 7% of those folks are voters, right? In a district that at any given point throughout several years is moving by about a point or two, right? Trump carried it by about one. Governor Sherrill carried it by about 1 to 2, right? Making a dent in any of these voter blocks could make a huge difference as far as being able to win here in this district. And so that's something that my campaign's already been doing, right? When it comes to the organizational strength, we are one of the things that I think we really are proud of is the volunteer base that we've built. We have over 50 active volunteers. Many of them are very young people. And I think that what we really need is a candidate that can motivate and inspire and energize, because ultimately money's only going to get you so far, right? We need someone that's going to energize Democrats, that's going to bring the passion out of us in the district to make sure that we turn out and knock on doors and run a stronger ground game than Tom King Jr. And then the last piece is around the financial investment. Yeah, Tom King Jr. is raising a ton of money. This is going to be an expensive race, but we have been through a very thorough vetting process with national Democratic partners that have assured us that if we are the nominee on June 3rd, they are ready to jump in with the investment necessary. And I think that it's really important when you're looking at candidates to make sure that it's not, because listen, we're all good candidates, but who's going to attract the investment necessary into this district to flip the seat? I've been through that process. I'm ready to go. The same cannot be said about everyone else in the field.
Thank you. Gary.
Yeah, Brian, given the challenges many New Jersey small businesses face in financing and credit access, what specific steps could you take in Congress to expand capital availability and support sustainable growth for local entrepreneurs? And state what county or local municipal partners would you work with in that capacity?
So I think one of the strongest business leaders in the county and in the district is the Morris County Chamber of Commerce. And I think there are other chambers, like there's a Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, which is huge, right? These would be amazing partners to bring in to really address a lot of these issues and empower small business. I think that as far as what are the policies that we can work on to do so, yeah, look, I think we need to expand access to capital for small businesses, right? There's a lot of businesses that are literally clocking in payroll at the very last minute and are struggling to keep up with their expenses to the point that they are taking very high interest loans. So every week, every month, they're actually getting a little bit more behind and just making that interest payment. And I think that if we were to step up and provide a friendlier access to capital, that would really lighten the load, and to the point where we could actually even create opportunities for them to invest back into their business. There are a lot of business owners that are tried and true and battle tested and know what they're doing and want to expand, but don't have the ability for whatever reason, right? And I think that if we were to create programs to empower that, we would see stronger small businesses here in the county and in the district. One of the other pieces as well is that there are a lot of aspiring business owners. So we saw in New York City how Mayor Ramdani wanted to create the city-run grocery stores. And I personally think that the better approach there would be to provide access to capital, whether it's low interest or no interest loans, to people who want to start their own businesses. And if you couple that with what communities need, Now you've got two incentives, right? You've got a community that really needs a local grocery store, right? You've got maybe a couple who's wanted to dive into entrepreneurship but has never had the opportunity, and then you set it up in a way where they're also assigned a mentor to make sure that they're being guided every step of the process. Now you are creating opportunities for people to jump into business while satisfying issues that communities are facing, whether it be childcare or food, etc.
Excellent. All right. That brings us to the end of our questions, our full questions. We do have a brief lightning round. This is very simple yes or no questions. It's just basically a policy check on basic Democratic Party platform issues. So Andy, would you like to take us through that?
Hey, Brian, there's just 10 questions, yes or no questions, okay? So, do you support access to affordable health care for all, including protections for pre-existing conditions?
Yes,
Okay. Do you support policies that promote racial, gender, and LGBTQ plus equity?
absolutely.
Do you support policies to address climate change and expand clean energy?
Heck yes.
Do you support reproductive rights, including a woman's right to choose?
Oh yes.
Do you support protecting and expanding voting rights?
Yep.
Do you support comprehensive immigration reform, including a pathway to citizenship for undocumented immigrants?
Oh yes.
Do you support federal investment in public education and affordable higher education?
Yep.
Do you support policies to protect Social Security, Medicare, and other essential programs for seniors?
Yes.
Do you support investment in broadband infrastructure and digital access to bridge the technology divide?
Yes.
And last one, do you support federal initiatives for disaster resilience, climate adaptation, and infrastructure modernization?
Yes.
Okay, that's
Great.
10. Thank you, sir.
That is 10. We're going to add in an 11th. Should you not be the nominee for CD7, would you commit to supporting whoever is chosen?
Yes. And I've already put my money where my mouth is. I've donated to all my opponents.
Excellent. All right, Brian, would you like to give our closing question?
Okay. Brian, question to fellow Brian. This is probably the hardest question there is. Campaigning is hard work. What makes you happy about campaigning and this process?
The thing that makes me happiest about campaigning is when I actually get to talk to people. And more specifically, it's when I'm out in the field, whether it's knocking on doors or I'm at events. It's there. This is tough. This is very hard, and there are days that are rough. And when those days culminate in me ending up having a meet and greet or going to someone else's event, and then I just start to see folks, that just re-energizes me, and that really does make me very happy.
Excellent. Well, that brings us to the end of our regular questions. And so now I will open it to the floor to see if there's anything else that any of our members would like to bring up.
Yes, Mr. Varela, how long have you lived in the district?
I have lived in the district going on 3 years now.
And prior?
Prior, I was in Hudson County.
Okay.
And to add on to that, I actually knocked over 3,000 doors for Sue Altman in 2024.
Right.
Excellent.
So I have a question. Could you tell us a little bit more about the businesses that you've started and are running? What do they do? What types of businesses?
Yes.
Maybe one that's been very successful and one that hasn't been as successful, etc.
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely. Oh, well, I my first real business was a food distribution company, and that one did not go well. That was back in what year was that? 2015, I think. After that, I got involved. I started a marketing agency that did okay. I still have that business. I later on got involved with a med spa, and that does well, and I still own that business. But childcare has been my most successful business, which I shared a little bit about how I got started there. And I would say that I still have the marketing agency. I still have the med spa, but childcare is really my overwhelmingly main business.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? All right, Brian, what final thought would you like to leave us with in 1 minute?
In 1 minute. Look, I think that when you're looking at this race, you've got a lot of amazing candidates. You've got to really look through the lens of electability. And I think when you look through the lens of electability, you've got to find someone that can build a broad coalition. I've talked about that already. It's going to be important for that person to do the same thing in the general, right? We've done that, and it spans the entire ideological spectrum, which is really critical in a district that's got 20,000 more registered Republicans. I think that it's looking at who has crossover appeal, who can turn out young voters, who can turn out, these different voting blocks. I'm proving to be doing the work to be doing that, and I think that if just looking at our volunteer base, you can see that we are hitting those groups. And look, we know that this is going to require significant financial investment, so we've got to make sure whoever the nominee is going to be able to secure that investment. And I'm proud to say that we've jumped through the hurdles pretty extensively and are positioned to do so.
Excellent. Brian, thank you so much for joining us today. We've really enjoyed hearing all of your answers, and we look forward to seeing you at our nominating convention on March 22nd.
Thank you all. I appreciate you. Take
Thanks,
care.
Brian.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Okay.
All right.